Good morning. This is Jeff and David Bush from Grow My Profit, and we've got a special guest today, a good friend of mine and my corporate attorney off and on for 30 years. Paul Rafferty's with us, and excited to share with our CEO clients, prospects, just learn a little bit more about, gosh, if you're exiting your business, having good legal representation. I mean, most people that I know that exit out of a business, it's like maybe one time in your life. I mean, if you're lucky, right? It's like somebody told me the other day, Jeff, you had an exit in your business. That's like a Super Bowl ring. I'm like, that's funny. I never thought of it that way, but it kind of is. I mean, some people have two, three, four exits. The first one's 10 million and then 100 million and then a billion. I mean, that's awesome. People like Elon Musk and, big ones. But for most people, this is like the biggest financial transaction of their life. It used to be buying a house, right? And now it's like, oh my God, selling a business, whether it's $1 million, 100 million, or a billion, doesn't matter. It's the biggest transaction of your life. So you want to have good, legal representation. And Paul was able to do my deal for me and get me out clean and go up against some bloodthirsty attorneys out of Chicago, right? I got to be careful what I say. I know we've got our non-compete and my attorney's on the phone. He's like, Jeff, you can't talk about that. You can't talk. So I got to be a little careful. I'm going to have to talk slower and think through what I'm going to talk about. But yeah, I'm just stoked to have my friend Paul on the call and just make a quick introduction. So thanks for joining us, Paul.
No, I'm really happy to be there. Yeah, what Jeff is talking about is his transaction. It was a very complicated transaction with a very good firm out of Chicago, but they settled the transaction with 5 to 6 lawyers, and so it made for a very complicated transaction. And as you may recall, Jeff, we ended up marshaling a good, I don't know, 13 to 15 different contracts and documents because the acquirer of your business was sophisticated as well. Your business was sort of the crowning jewel of a bunch of other closely held companies that this holding company had, and the tax consequences had to be considered. They wanted to reformat the corporate structure of your organization. It was it
It's a good
was
one.
it was quite a show. It was quite a show, but all's well that ended well, and you got your Super Bowl ring.
Right, right. Now I just got to keep it, not like Kobe Bryant's dad is selling his NBA championship ring right now. Did you hear that? I was like, how sad. Kobe gave his dad the ring and he's selling it for 200 grand. I don't want to be in that position, right? Gotta keep money coming in, right? I don't want to have to sell that ring. It's funny. Um, so yeah, I'll just tell a quick history of Paul. So I am a sales manager working at a direct mail advertising company in Orange County, and I've got like 40 salespeople, four managers. So I'm like vice president of sales. And God dang it, what, two or three times a year, one of those salespeople would do something stupid, whether it's a sexual harassment thing or I'm going to steal all these customers and go start my own business thing. Or I'm trying to think of how many cases we were involved in over 7 years that I was there. It was at least five that I can remember. And you were the corporate attorney. And because I'm the VP of sales, I've got all the information, right? So I end up getting pulled into the case and having to give, testimony or documents. So that's when I first met Paul. I think I was like 23 years old when I was there, or maybe 25, like running that big sales organization. And that's where I met Paul. And then when I left that company and started my mortgage company, Paul was my corporate attorney. So he saw me go from zero to $12 million, 70 employees. And we had a few issues there, over 7 or 8 years. You probably helped get me out of some problems, some created by me, some not created by me, probably three or four times. And then, watched the downturn of the mortgage business, watched me sink and just kind of lose everything. Horrible 2007, 2008, got me out of that problem. Then I start Overflow, and you see that go from 0 employees to 70 employees and $20 million in revenue, and then take me through a sale. So it's funny, I've been a client both at just working for a company, owning a couple companies. So we've got this 30-year history, and we've kind of become friends and like to do stuff sometimes outside of work. And it's just been fun. So Paul, you want to give them kind of your background? I mean, you've been with the big firms and partners in firms, and now just kind of doing your own thing. I mean, you want to give them kind of a history if somebody's looking for a good, corporate attorney to represent either on a sale or maybe just something big and complicated, intellectual property. I know you've done some pretty exciting things, a lot bigger than my deal. Do you want to just give them some quick background?
Ultimately, just to address the issue, I think that's most important to the people who might listen to this webinar. Yeah, in operating a business and in growing a business, you got to have a lawyer in your back pocket. I mean, I just think it's really necessary because there's so many contracts and problems and issues that a growing business will confront. And I also think that it's really important that the lawyer that you choose is someone that could also be your friend. Because if you find a lawyer that could also be your friend, invariably the lawyer is going to care a lot more about you and your business and your family. And my mantra, even from the early days, has always been to develop longstanding relationships, and so that we're all sort of part of a family. And I know Jeff Bush, and I know his entire family, and I've known his businesses, and I know how Jeff Bush thinks. And I think just that's important for anyone out there, is to try and find that relationship where you can really build a good long-term relationship with a lawyer, so that when issues come up, they can be quickly handled and solved. When I was a young lawyer, I had a partner who once said that it was important that lawyers always grease the wheels of business, meaning we should be there to help facilitate business, grow business, make things work, not become a hindrance to business. And so there's an important distinction. And again, you have to find the right lawyer to do that. And in this context, when the company finally gets to that point of critical mass where perhaps the owner wants to sell all or most of the company or controlling interest in the company, having a lawyer to do this type of transaction is super important, and every step of the way. And we could talk a little bit about that. But I also want to say that having someone to get the company there is also just as important, if not more important. And I really think that's where you come in. I'm not here to blow your horn, but I remember just the Jeff Bush of 2007, 2008, after running and growing successful companies. The recession hit, and I'll never forget you telling the story about how you just got up one day and you knew you needed to do something different, and you started from nothing. In fact, you told me that you basically took a chair and a folding table, and you went out and sat in a shed in the back of your house, and you just sat there and said, "What am I going to do?" And you started from there, and then ultimately, one step at a time, grew a business into a business where ultimately, the terms are confidential, but ultimately, you sold your business and in an 8-figure range. And that is not easy to do, but you did it all by yourself. And that's why now you're offering these services to other companies, because you know how to do it. And a lot of people can say, yeah, I mean, sell more widgets, make more money. It's way more complicated than that. And I think what you and David are doing here is really helpful, because I think everybody is going to win.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was just thinking about, attorney friend versus attorney billable hours. Multiple times I had an employee that had a frivolous lawsuit. It was so frivolous, and it would piss you off as the owner. Like, no, that chair did not cause your back problem. No, you never worked overtime. You left early every day, but you're suing me for overtime, and I messed up your back because I didn't give you the right chair. I mean, it would just piss me off as an owner, kind of emotional guy, like, and Paul, I'm right, she's wrong. We're fighting this thing. And Paul said, listen, I'll gladly take your $100,000 in legal fees, or write her a check for 20 grand and settle and make her go away. And dude, I wanted to spend the 100 grand because I was right. But Paul would always be like, Jeff, just do the math. court costs, settlement, small, small claims court, superior court. It was like, it's going to cost me 100 grand. So, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? It was kind of that question. And I always appreciated that about Paul. And probably two or three times that I wanted to fight, he goes, hey, just make this a financial decision, take your emotion out of it, and just settle this thing. And I settled two. I think two cost me 25 grand, and they're both frivolous. I was 100% right. They were 100% wrong, but it just made sense to settle and just get me out of this thing. And then I can move on. And next month I'm making $300,000 in my business, right? So what did 25 grand, just the cost of doing business? I was always appreciative of that.
You
Um,
know, yeah, that's one good example. I mean, you've with your different companies, always, we experience issues with employees, and many times, because I'm a business lawyer primarily, and many times we're experiencing issues that oftentimes deal with the trade secrets of the company, confidential information. And you'll see that here, with the people who are listening to this webinar. Ultimately, they're going to be confronted with these same issues, particularly if they're lucky enough to sell their company. As you know, it will likely be an employment agreement. It will be a non-competition agreement. In California, if you sell the goodwill of a business, you can be held to provisions where you cannot compete against the company that you sold. And so understanding these kind of provisions, this area of law, is important for you as a business owner. That's what I help you with, month to month, year to year. Business issues, intellectual property issues, leasing issues, contract issues, sourcing issues, vendor problems. But these are the kind of things that if if you don't have someone offering you some advice, you can't always make the best decision, because it's not your strong suit. It's my strong suit is how to get through business, without getting dragged down by legal issues or problems.
I remember a good friend of ours, his name is Jeff. I think he went to sell his company and he mentioned to me after he sold it, because I wish that I would have paid a lot more money for my attorney and been able to use somebody like Paul. I kind of cut some corners and saved a little bit of money. And I'll never forget him saying, Jeff, if you ever sell a company, get the best, most expensive, aggressive. It doesn't matter what it costs. It is so important, especially if somebody 10, 20 times your size is buying you, because they're lawyered up. They got some heavy hitters. Like you said, the company we were negotiating with had 6 attorneys, right, working on this. And I remember, my legal expense was a 6 figure, check, which, it's a lot of money. And I think theirs was pushing 7 figures, which I'm like, whoa, like that's crazy, right? We're up against, some pretty heavy duty people. So anyways, your background at these big law firms, I'm sure just from the legal side, what Shepherd Mullen, right? You were there for a long time. And then Jones Day. I mean, you're talking top 10, top 20 law firms in the world, right? And then now, kind of off on your own. I remember when you went to Jones Day and you said, Jeff, I hate to break the news to you, you can't afford me. And I was like, you're right. I'm a little, at that point, $5 million business making, 500 grand a year. You're like, you can't afford me, the fees. And so, your background going from, small to big corporate and now back to like your own deal, is that probably an interesting, side of the business. You've lived in all aspects of it because of what do you have, long career doing this. So
Yeah, it's been a super interesting journey for me. I've really been very fortunate since, the 1990s. I've been associated with, I think, some of the greatest law firms, on earth. Ultimately, retiring from Jones Day, obviously, in my view, one of the best, if not the best law firm in the world,
yeah.
with 2,500 lawyers and 44 offices, or whatever it might even be now. Just a great firm. But, I operated at that time in a very big echelon, and needed to play in the majors, and that was all pretty costly. It was really nice, a few years ago when I retired from that firm, and just put together a small firm, and came back and revisited all of the folks, many of whom couldn't pay my hourly rates when I was at the big firm. And one by one, the Jeff Bushes of the world, and all of the other folks I could mention, slowly, learned to that and found their way back. And it was really awesome, because now in this platform, I'm not only half the cost that I used to be with the big firm, but also, uh, I can do what I need to do in the best manner possible for my friends who are also my clients, because I don't have any I don't have any requirements. I don't have any guidelines. I don't have to bill so many hours. I really don't need the money. I do it now just because, you like to get up in the morning. What you realize when you no longer have to work is it's just really nice to work. It's just really nice to get up and think about doing something. And at the end of the day, when I have a good day and I really have thought about something hard and I really feel like we've gotten a good result, I just really feel good about that. And that's what gets you up every morning, once you get older. I always wondered, when I was in my 30s and my 40s, man, what would it be like? Would I still really work? Would I do this job if I didn't have to anymore? And then one day I didn't have to do it anymore. And I looked around, I was like, yeah, this is a pretty good gig.
It's not so bad, right?
Yeah, it's not so
That's
bad.
funny.
It was fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, now we do things for fun. And, this particular company that you're operating now, it doesn't get any more fun. Making relationships with companies that, they know they've got something great, but they just don't know how to get there. And helping those companies get there and then get to that day when you get to the altar and you start going through the dance, with prospective buyers and what that all means, it just doesn't get any more exciting than that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, grow my profit, kind of like, I had this 8-figure exit and always wanted to do something with my brother David. We've never done a business together. He moved to Iowa and I'm here in Southern California, but we always had kind of good relationships. So, he's been the coach, I've been more of the CEO driver, so we came together. So right now we're taking on businesses that are anywhere from 1 to 10 million in revenue, so small to medium sized business. Maybe they're making, 100 grand a year to $1 million a year. And we're like, hey, if you engage with us, we'll build your sales team, build your lead generation, help you with your operation, help you with your products. Let's 10x your business. Let's take it from 1 million to 10 million, or let's take your business from 10 million to 100 million. I've done this 3 times in my lifetime, so I know how to do it. But specifically talking to the CEOs that are out that are thinking about selling their business, right now, I just heard that the baby boomers, there's more baby boomers than there ever has been. I mean, people turning 65 every day, and they're wanting to exit their business, and their kids don't want it. Their kids are home playing computers and Halo 3, and, like they have no interest in mom and dad's business. So there's so many businesses going for sale. Some of these people have had their business 20, 30, 40 years, sometimes 2 or 3 generations, and now they're going to sell. So, advice on getting an attorney and getting a good CPA to, if there's any advice you could give these CEOs that are thinking about selling in the next year or 5 years, kind of coming up with a plan. Do you have any, like, 2 or 3 things you should do as far as when you're getting ready to sell your business? Like, how far in advance should they be talking to their attorney and structuring the deal and their CPA?
Well, the way I see it is this, the first you got to get there, right? So, hopefully the people who are listening to this today are people who are almost there, close to getting there, or need help getting there. So the first step is you got to get there. And your company will help people get there. Once you get there, then it's an interesting process, right? The first thing you really need to do is you need to find prospective buyers. And as you know, you made a smart decision right away. You employed consultants who specialize in finding the best possible fit for a company like yours. And so that in itself is something that you can teach your clients, because it's something that it's not self-evident to people. People don't know that. They don't know how to work that. Once you do that, then ultimately there will be prospective buyers that will be out there. And then, you're going to have to sort through those buyers, and you're going to have to decide which buyer is best for you. And again, having people by your side to counsel you on how to do that is itself a science. many people go for the biggest dollars, and that's the worst possible decision in almost every situation. And I just had one recently. The best deal was not the deal that offered the most money. It was the deal that offered the best cultural fit. We liked the people on the other side of the table. We knew they were ethical. There was less money, but now we're all looking at it in hindsight, and everyone is agreeing this is a really great situation. Once you get that consultant, and the consultant finds you that right buyer, then the next thing that happens is you're going to enter into that first contract, and that's a big one. It can be a letter of intent that may be non-binding, but nonetheless, it puts you on the road. The letter of intent, needs to be carefully drafted. You need to understand, what it means. You also have to understand how the relationships change. Your lawyer is your lawyer, and that's it. Your lawyer only cares about you 100% of the time. But you have to understand that people's roles all around you are changing. And a lot of buyers, they don't understand that the first time around. A lot of sellers don't understand that the first time around. For example, if I'm selling my business, that consultant that brought me the right buyer, he's my best friend. But guess what? Once we have the buyer and we start in the process, he's no longer necessarily my best friend. He acts like he's my best friend. But at that point in time, the only thing that consultant now wants to do is close the deal, because that's how those consultants make their money. And they don't make any money if you don't sell your business. So they want you to sell your business. And so you have to be careful the advice you're getting. In your particular situation, as you kept outrunning the projections for the performance of the company during the pendency of the transaction. And so you had a great buyer, and that buyer was open to continuing dialogue about what ultimately the compensation would be that you might make upon sale of your company. And those things were renegotiated. We were able to do it because you had a sophisticated buyer, because you picked the right buyer in the first place. But who the person was who was sweating the most? The original consultant. Because the original consultant, remember, you would come to me and say, boy, he doesn't want me to renegotiate this deal. He thinks the deal's good enough and I should leave. What do you think, Paul? And I'm like, well, let's understand the relationships, right? And so too, even when you pick the best of buyers, you're going to have to understand that the mood is going to change. As you know, once due diligence then begins, after that LOI is signed and everybody's rolling up their sleeves, your buyer becomes a lot more serious. And you have to understand what that means. And then you have to go through that process. And as you know, that is one heck of a process. If you think it'll take 30 days to sell your company, it'll take 90. The amount of issues, extraordinary. In your case, sign-offs of extraneous issues from your bank. Why?
They pull every skeleton out of the closet. Hey, Jeff, we saw there was a filing 7 years ago at the Secretary of State. Can you explain this? It's like, Derek, I don't even remember that, but yeah, I'll try to go get you some information on it. Yeah.
Yeah, we had with why is there a UCC1 filed on a printer that you've got in the back, and we want to release from that printer because we don't want Rico to come back and demand. It was like crazy stuff. How you set aside all your documents is important. How you keep all those documents confidential is important. How you keep the dialogue confidential is important. What do you tell your employees? How do you manage your employees during this process when people are just coming in and looking at the company? How do you keep your people in the company? Remember, that was a big thing with your company. The buyer was very concerned that the talented people that you had in your company would stay in the company after you sold the company, because you were their brightest point of light. How do you handle all that? How do you negotiate that with your employees? These are all different issues that you must go through to sell your company. And if you do it without a good consultant and you do it without a lawyer, you're doomed. You mentioned previously a mutual friend of ours, another client that I've represented since 1994. And but he's a smart guy. And now, as you know, he has another business. He's cornering the market on real estate investment and hugely successful. But at that time, when he was selling a different business a few years back, he thought it was a very simple process. He didn't want any help. He thought, you know what? I'm getting a good price for it. How difficult can it be?
Hey, for
Well,
sale by owner, just like a house, right? This is going to
yeah, yeah. It was just, I get the amount of money. I'm selling you the business. It's all good. Here are the keys. And, in hindsight, he found that it was much more complicated. And in that particular Jeff that you mentioned is a really smart guy. But when you get into the league of selling a business, it's extraordinarily complicated.
It's funny. You just reminded me something that was so interesting about my sale. I found an M&A guy, the consultant that said, I'll sell your business. I'm going to charge you, 3%, so it's a lot of hundreds of thousands of dollars. And he was famous and he wrote a book and I was enamored by this guy. And so I paid him 25 grand and he built the pitch deck. Here's the company for sale. Here's how pretty it is. He did a great job on all that. He had the company for sale for 6 months with not one offer. Not, and I go, something's wrong. Like, I know this is a valuable company growing. Somebody wants it. I can't believe I don't have an offer. So after 6 months, I fired him, walked away from the 25 grand that I paid him, hired another company who put the company for sale, and I had 5 offers the first week. What was the difference? The consultant, that the second one, had a list of all the buyers. He knew who the buyers were because he was in my industry. So when he put the offering out to the right people, I had 5 offers. And you're
Mm.
right, picking through the 5 offers, it's not just highest, similar to a house. The realtors say, hey, highest and best offer, right? Right. You got an offer for $1 million to buy your house, but it's 2% down. You got an offer for 950 cash, close in 7 days, no appraisal, no inspection, not it's highest and best. So yeah, sometimes you get an offer where we're going to give you 50% cash up front and 50% in 5 years if you hit these big numbers. Well, I might take an offer that's 90% cash with no earnout, no contingencies. No, it was so complicated. So you're right. We had to go through 5 offers, and you had strategic buyers that knew the direct mail business. And then you had financial buyers who didn't have a clue, but they wanted me to stay and run that business for the next 5 years so they could make all their money back. And I didn't really want to stay around for 5 years. So it's like all those details. And I remember when the company was going up in revenue and earnings every month, and I felt like I might be selling it a little bit short money wise. And I remember telling that broker, hey, I need more money. And man, he was shaking in he wouldn't even ask. I go, dude, if you're too weak to ask, I'm asking. And we got millions of dollars more, millions. And if I would have trusted that guy who I wasn't too, he was great at marketing the business. He had a great list. He was a horrible negotiator. I had to go negotiate, and you and I talking, hey, Jeff, you don't have to sell this thing. Walk away. You have the ability. And so, yeah, all that, such an emotional time. It's bringing back some interesting memories. And like I said, how many businesses do you get to sell in a lifetime?
Yeah.
One,
Yeah.
two, three, maybe. It's like, if it's your first time. I was talking to a CEO yesterday. He did 5 million in revenue last year, made 500 grand. Big business out in Palm Springs. And he has 2 buyers for his business right now. And the 2 buyers are kind of going back and forth, driving the price up. And I go, my friend, I won't say his name, if you were to list your business for sale with a good broker, what if you had 10 offers coming in? What would that do to the price? Because he's depending, I got 2 buyers, he's all excited, the price is going up, and he's going to just pick the best one. But there could be 50 other people interested in buying his business, but he's too cheap to pay the 3% commission to the consultant that'll get his company out for sale to hundreds of people that could get him millions of dollars more. It's just funny. CEOs, sometimes their egos are so big and they think they know it all. They make colossal mistakes. I think it's so important to stay teachable. And if you don't know and you haven't done it 100 times, go talk to the people that did. I mean, you've done a lot of transactions through the years, so you saw pitfalls and you got history, right? So that is so valuable. It's so worth spending, a lot of money to sell your company to a few people, because overall it was I got a great deal, and so did the buyer. The buyer got a great deal too. So that was
Yeah. No, it's the takeaways of what you just said are as follows. One, it's a big deal who you pick to help you sell your company, start to finish. You gave an example of how first you chose the wrong person and then you chose the right person. And people listening to this webinar today, they're not going to know whether we're the right people or you're the right people or the wrong people. But I can tell you this, I don't need anybody's business. And if I don't like you, I won't even represent you. And you're already wildly successful and you don't need the money. And you're only doing it because you've said the same thing. You haven't said it on here, but you call me up and you're like, Paul, I'm just bored. I'm just, I need something to do with myself. I'm tired of just driving around in my Ferrari and this and that. And, I just, I need something more to do. And so here you are. So you really got to try and understand the motivation of people, when you try and pick the right person. But ultimately, got to sit down with people and you just got to really try and understand who they are. And I can't say enough about, Jeff, except that he talks too much. And so his brother never gets to talk at all. But it's a great yin and yang, the business, right? Because, Jeff is the California, mover and shaker. He's got the red Ferrari and all that kind of stuff. And then David probably drives a GMC Sierra like I do because he's like from Iowa. So, it'd be like if he wore a collared shirt with two colors on it, it's probably a little risque. So, you got a real
That's funny.
conservative end and you got a real gregarious end, but the combination makes for a very, very, I think, a very balanced business.
Yeah, David had like 10 questions that were really good. And I'm like, I'm taking a lot of time here. We're halfway through. But David, I was going to ask him to lob in one of the questions from our sheet that it could help CEOs that are thinking about selling their business or corporate structure. What do you think out of all those questions? You want to drop one over to Paul? And
Yeah, you've covered a lot of them just indirectly, just in conversing back and forth about your transaction, Jeff. But Paul, if you could maybe just quickly identify the top three pitfalls that are maybe something that you haven't talked about that you just recognize. These are three things that every business owner should be aware of when they go into contract when selling their business. You need to make sure that you have this, that, and this. Anything that would just jump out at you?
Well, I'll tell you, the if I try and just look at, big pots, right? There could be 10 issues in each pot. So we try and just reduce them to three pots. One pot has got to be don't have unfinished business in your company. Make sure that your consultants, your accountants, your lawyers, whatever, have shook your company out and your company looks good to a prospective buyer. And that means if you don't have things adequately documented in your company, document. If you have certain contractual relationships that are important to the business and there's nothing on paper, document it. If your finances aren't quite right, you have unresolved liabilities floating out there, and you get to them someday. Get figured out, get it done. These are all going to be, red flags. Intellectual property issues is just a great example. I've got Bobo Company. I just love Bobo Company. I've been doing Bobo Company 15 years in Southern California, and then I want to sell, and then a prospective buyer says, "Did you ever register Bobo Company as a trademark?" No, everybody knows Bobo. Come on, I'm Bobo. Really? Well, there's a Bobo in Michigan, another Bobo in Florida, another Bobo in South Carolina. Now, how am I going to take the brand nationally because you never protected Bobo as a registered trademark? It's a problem. And so, these kind of issues drive buyers away. Gee, what other things? I'm just sort of looking at a short list. I've known medical device companies, regulatory issues. Holy cow. Patent issues. Did you get a patent? Yeah, we sort of did, but it sort of didn't get finalized. And we wish we need to get back to that, but maybe the buyer will take care of it. No, the buyer's just not going to buy your company because the value that you think you have in a company, it may be operating well, but when you go from looking at a business that's operating well to what the value of the business is, buyers will look at it differently, right? They're looking at what they can actually acquire. And then finally, I would say a third and final pot is understanding the importance of the CEO owner to the business and understanding how to separate the value that CEO owner operates from the business so that when a buyer comes in, a buyer, will buy a sellable business. Good example. I had a client years and years ago, and CEO owner, LLC, very, very, very hands-on. Too hands-on. I kept telling them, you got to step back and you've got to let the business operate. But you would never delegate to lieutenants because he was paranoid, right? That they would leave and form competing businesses. And he took all the phone calls. He did all the legwork. And, then, got to that 63, 64 years of age, and he couldn't sell his business because although it was generating, I think it was doing about 8 million a year, and it had a decent margin, it was him. He was the business. And we couldn't convince any buyer that if he left, that the business would remain, because every buyer was too concerned that if he rode off into the sunset, that the clients would all disappear too. And so that probably is the third and biggest issue of an owner, not only stepping back so that we can show independently the value of the business for purposes of sale, but also emotionally need to get the owner used to the concept of exiting the company, because that's a very difficult emotional issue too. And frequently, owners who sell, who believe that when they have that sunset clause for the next year, where they're being paid as a consultant, that, the day after sale, they're going to be so loved and, revered. Most of the times the buyer, it's like, shows you the door by the following month. They have no interest in talking to you.
You and all your family on payroll, you're out of here, right? Like that happened to be, right?
Yeah.
I'm first, and then all the family members are next, right? Off payroll. So you
It
think
can it can it it,
real
it can
smooth,
it can be that way. It's just you have to be used to you have to be ready for these things emotionally too. Part of having a good friend as a consultant in this kind of process is understanding the emotional roller coaster that you're going to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff, would you mind just sharing just a couple things as we wrap up here today on from an owner's perspective? What are the top 2 or 3 things that you would share with a business owner as pitfalls that maybe you fell into or that you avoided as you exited your company?
I'll give you one good one that comes to mind is I'm a pretty simple guy because 50% of every CEO of a business comes out of this sales world. 50% of all CEOs are from sales. People think sales is a terrible job, but if you start in sales and you learn how to sell, you can be an owner someday. That's me, right? 50%. Elon Musk, he comes from engineering. Well, he went to school in Pennsylvania, right? College. He's more of an engineering CEO, but he is crazy. Love the guy. He's crazy. But anyways,
But not to interrupt you, Jeff, but if you ever listen to him speak, because I listen to him speak many times on a lot of the social media, he is so genuinely convincing. Everything he talks about, he's genuinely committed to, and that's one of the hallmarks of a great salesman is that emotional commitment that he communicates when he speaks.
Well, and I was thinking Jeff Bezos, very smart guy, very brilliant guy, but dear God, did he have to sell you on, I need another 10 million, I need another 100 million. I know we're losing 40 million a year, but I swear Amazon someday is going to be profitable. I swear. So they are selling for their entire lives, whether it's selling stock, invest in my company, and Elon. And there's 2 good examples, 2 people that didn't come from the sales world, but phenomenal salespeople selling you on investing in their company and driving stock up. Crazy, right? But from a sales perspective, I'm very simple. The money comes in. As soon as the cash comes in, I pay the salesperson, I put it on the books. I'm cash accounting. Well, guess what? When somebody comes in to buy your company, they'll never buy it on cash accounting. It needs to be accrual. Accrual was too complicated for me. I hated looking at amortizing it over a year, backtracking. What do you mean the money came in? I can't count that as revenue because they might call and ask for a refund. I mean, I understand it, but I like simple accounting. I had to when this buyer came in, it was like, we got to redo all your books for the last 12 months to accrual. I'm like, crap. I should have done that before. And it would have been a prettier company, because when they see cash accounting, they're like, this guy's kind of dumb. This guy's kind of ancient. And it just didn't make me look as sophisticated, because I knew exactly how much money my company was making on a cash basis every month. I knew revenue, margin, expenses, EBITDA, 100% clear. But I had to move it all to accrual. And I think my CPA was trying to get me to do it like a year before. And I'm like, dude, I'm driving sales. I'm making freaking 300 grand a month. Leave me alone. I'm not doing that. I should have done that. So from an accounting perspective, getting that cleaned up and making it on accrual basis so you're ready to sell and they can look at accurate financials. Mine were pretty good. They were accurate, but they were just cash accounting. That was a big one. That was one thing for me. The last year that I was owning the business, I knew if I changed my business over to more technology, instead of selling it for X multiple, I could have got double the multiple if I could have just changed the business the way the revenue is coming in. And, I tried it like twice over about actually 2 or 3 years, and it failed. So I gave up. I wish I wouldn't have given up on that. If I would have kept pressing forward, knowing that if I can make my company more tech oriented, let's just say digital and not direct mail growing at 3% per year, digital growing at 40% per year. I could have sold the company for double the money if I would have spent a little more time organizing the company into more of a growth industry, whether that's a new product, a new team. I wish I would have done that, because I left tens of millions of dollars on the line, because I don't want to say I got lazy. I just didn't put as much focus on that. And I tried a couple times and it was really hard. So I gave up. I probably should have pushed forward on that. So organizing the company, somebody told me years ago, they go, Jeff, I know you work really hard to bring in new customers and drive revenue up and profits, but do me a favor, spend 50% of your time driving up what your business will be worth someday when you sell it. And I heard that 10 years ago, and I kind of dismissed it, but now I look back and go, now I know what he was talking about. If I would have gotten double the money, would have been nice. It's not that much more work. So, yeah, products, accounting, I'm happy with my exit. You got to be content. I got a great 8-figure exit, but you look back and go, I could have done it a little better, and maybe next time I'll do it a little different. And because there's little things that can make a difference of tens of millions of dollars, it's crazy. So
we had a transaction that it began with a company that in the early 90s, and this is to your point of looking, looking 10 years ahead of where you want to be and how you want to do it. And the company started, actually it was around 1986, began, and in the sports industry and action sports. And along the way, by 1990, thought, well, I have this company, and now I'm going to develop synergy now, and I'm going to form this business over here. And then by 1993, thought, oh, I'm going to form 2 companies over there synergistically to do this, and I got that one working with that, and I own these 2 companies outright, and I got a 50-50 on this company, and blah 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 blah. Well, by 1999, there were 5 or 6 different companies, and the owner, thought that was great fun. He was making money from all of the companies, but then he wanted to sell, and he went to sell the mothership, but the mothership it wasn't the business as he saw it. There were 6 businesses. It was a crucial mistake, and luckily, we all sat down and took about a year and a half and reformulated the 6 companies with the mothership into one company. And by bringing that all back in and reformulating it into a company that will be a true company that would have a great value in terms of sale, after we got all that done, we we improved the revenue of the company 600%. Because the revenue streams that we were really getting, that we were generating from the business, were separately held in different companies, and it didn't package well for sale. So it's a great example of what you're talking about, Jeff, which is, you build synergy with your companies, but understand that if you want an exit plan someday, along the way, make sure you build the best mousetrap for purposes of sale.
Yes. Keeping an eye
Yeah,
on.
run the business like that you are planning to sell it, even if you're not planning to sell it, because you know you're maximizing your opportunities. And maybe just close up, Jeff, with just the ideas around there's business owners out there right now. They don't have a sale date in mind, but they know that they want to sell it for 2 to 10x of where they're at today. What would be your next steps to help them to grow their revenue, grow their profits, grow their valuation? Any final comments?
There was one comment, and you just brought something up that I have to share. You want to get ready to sell your business when you don't want to sell your business. I have so many friends that get to the very end and they're so pissed and so burned out and frustrated. Now I got to sell my business. I want out. And they discount the hell out of it. They do a fire sale, probably to the lowest bidder. It's like, if you're thinking of selling your business 1 year from now, or even 5 years from now, get it ready now. Don't wait till you're desperate and burned out. I think a lot of people do that. It's a huge mistake. When I started this business, I think it was 2011. So I think I had it for 10 years. I started the business with, as soon as this company makes $2 million, I think I could sell it for 10 million, and I'm out. I started with an end in mind. I want to sell a business. I'm not in love with this thing. I'm not keeping it forever. So that made it very clear for me. And then, I ended up doubling the revenue and the earnings, and selling it for a lot more than my original goal. But I was not at the point where I'm like, don't wait till like you have to sell it, or, shoot, one of the partners dies, right? I mean, this is happening a lot where, the owners are 60, 70, 80 years old, and, one of them passes away, and now you're in business with his wife. Oh man, I've had some friends getting some deals like that. So just having it ready to go, and having kind of a contingency plan. So, those are my final thoughts would be, if you've never done it before, or maybe you didn't do a great job when you sold your business, get expert advice, get a little bit of input, pay for some people to share their knowledge with you, because you can learn so much, and it just saves you a lot of your headaches. And I'd rather learn from somebody else's mistakes, So good attorney, good operator. I mean, grow my profit. If you're thinking about building or selling, I mean, we're talking to people for an hour, sometimes for free, just to give some advice. And then if we can be of value, hey, let us join the team. If we can't be of value, go away and go do it on your own. I don't really care, just if we can help in some way. I love talking to business owners, and I've been through 3 of them, the ups, the downs. I understand it. So I love talking to business owners, and planning, and executing on a plan, and I can introduce them to Paul if they need an attorney, and Paul's available, to share some of the resources with them. So excited to follow up with some CEOs about this type of topic, and
I think it's a really good time for a lot of people that may, be lucky enough to find their way to your door. And I'll tell you why. I'm thinking of one company specifically that I know well. And a lot of people out there were really harmed by COVID,
Oh yeah,
and the derailment of industry and our economy.
interest
And
rates.
this particular company is a gentleman who, was ready to sell in 2020, and just got his business gutted. And now he'd like to sell, but now he can't sell, because now he needs to put together a robust package, probably 2 to 3 years of revenue, earnings. And he can't show the performance that the company represents, because of 2020, 2021, and 2022. A lot of small businesses exited and are trying to get back on their feet. But now is the time to get a good consultant. If you were a business and you suffered like that, and you're at that point where you had wanted to sell, but you need to do something more now, get the right consultants in place. Look to this next 24 to 36 month run to re-energize your business, organize it correctly, get your financials, reestablished and healed, and be ready. Now is the time to get the right people to make sure that here in 2024, you'll be ready to go in, the end of 2025 or 2026.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for joining us. Paul, thank you so much for contributing your time and expertise. And Jeff, thanks for sharing the deep, dark secrets of your journeys far and wide with business. It's always a pleasure just to go reminisce about some of the things that you've earned your stripes on. And for those of you that are exploring the idea of selling your business, please reach out to us at growmyprofit.com. We'll put you in connection with Paul. We'll also equip you with other resources and feedback that will help you on your journey. And if you'd like to continue to grow your business and scale 2 to 10x in the next 3 to 5 years, we'd love to be a part of that journey and have a conversation with you. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Have a great day.
Thanks.